So what we're making today is one of the best chicken curry recipes I've ever come across. This was actually, it's a slightly adapted version of a curry recipe that was given to me by a friend. He called it a Bhuna. He had worked in Indian restaurants for quite some time, and we've slightly adapted it, made it a little bit healthier and a little bit quicker as well. And for chicken, it was for lamb originally. See what you think of it, please. I know there's a lot of ingredients here, but if you take the time to gather all these ingredients, I guarantee you this is better than most, well, a good 80% of the curry restaurants out there can't make a curry as good as this. It's fantastic. So give it a go. So there's quite a lot of ingredients needed to make this curry. Let's go through them. We'll start with 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of oil. 3 medium-sized onions that I've just sliced quite roughly. 6 cloves of garlic and about a 4-inch piece of ginger. Now mine's frozen. I get this from Asian supermarkets, but yeah, if you want to do it yourself, you can do, and just chop it as fine as possible. Then salt and pepper. The dry spices we've got, let's start with the dries, 3 or 4 bay leaves. I've got, well, 3 bay leaves there, 2 3-inch pieces of cinnamon stick, around 8 cardamom pods that I have crushed up and taken the seeds out, and remember we want the black seeds there if possible. And I've also got 4 cloves in there, which I've crushed in the pestle and mortar. Then for the powders, I've got turmeric, 1.5 teaspoons of turmeric, teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of chilli, hot chili powder, and a teaspoon of a madras curry powder. Chopped tomatoes, I need 1/2 can of chopped tomatoes. I've got around 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos of chicken, and I've got some thigh pieces with bone in and some chicken breasts that I've sliced in half. It's always, you do get a better curry if you have a bit of bone in there. I add a few mushrooms in mine. These are optional. I like mushrooms in a curry. 2 to 4 sliced green or red finger chillies. If you're using bird eye chillies, probably take it down a little bit, 1.5, 2. This is also kind of optional. It's down to your flavour preferences. I'm using 3 sliced frozen finger chilies because I freeze them. They lose their potency a little bit, so I probably could push it to 4. But anyway, we're using 3. And to garnish, 1 teaspoon of Garam Masala, well, a good handful of chopped coriander, which again I keep in the freezer, so I'm going to put that back in the freezer now. One other thing you will need for this curry is a blender or food processor if you want to use my method, which is a really good method. I've tried and tested it, but if you haven't got one, I'll give you some alternatives for that. Okay, let's get started. So the first step, we've got a nice heavy bottomed pan on a medium-high heat, and we're just going to chuck the oil in. I'm using rapeseed oil, which is lower in saturated fat. You don't have to. You can use any frying oil. That's what I'm using. And then in with the onions. And we're just going to fry those off for 2 or 3 minutes before we do anything else. So the onions have been frying now for, well, probably 4 or 5 minutes actually. They've softened up and they're nicely brown. We're going to add in the dry spices, which is the 3 bay leaves and the cinnamon and the crushed cloves and cardamoms. In they go. And the garlic, give it a stir. And then putting in the crushed ginger and garlic. And we'll give that a good 5 minutes now as well. So if it starts sticking, this has been on now for another couple of minutes. Just throw in half a glass of water just to stop it sticking. So the onions have probably had a good 10 minutes now. We've added a bit more water. They've had a nice good cooking. Now this stage, if you haven't got a blender, what I suggest you do is add a bit more water, give them a good bashing, the onions like that. You can even try a masher and mash them up. This just saves you a bit of time. If If you don't do this method, then really you've got to cook your onions for a long time, and this just manages to sort of cut a lot of that time down. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take it off the heat for a second, and I'm going to take out the cinnamon and the bay leaves. Now you don't want to blend the cinnamon and the bay leaves, or you'll end up with little bits all in your curry, and that's terrible. So we've only got 2 pieces of cinnamon in there and 3 bay leaves, so we should easily be able to find them and get them out. Take the bay leaves out. Okay, we're going to transfer this to the blender. Now to the onions, we're going to add the dry spices, half a can of tomatoes, and if they're not blending properly, we might add a little bit more water. There's the dry spices going in, and half a can of tomatoes. Lid on and give that a good blend. And if you need to, take the lid off, chuck your spoon in. We can put in a little bit of water as well to help the sauce to catch on the blender. Of course, the processor would probably do this a lot quicker. There we go. And it's cooked. Okay, that should do. So that is our curry sauce, which you can now put back on the heat. We can add back in our dry spices, cinnamon and bay leaves. And we can also rinse out the blender with a bit of water. It will be a drier sauce now. So a bit of water will be fine. So once that is hot, we will be ready to add the chicken. The sauce is hot, and we're going to throw in the chillies now. Sliced chillies, in they go. And in goes our chicken as well. And we're going to season the whole thing. We're going to give it a good mix. Season the whole thing with a good half a teaspoon of salt and a good grind of pepper. Stir. That needs to cook for a good 10 minutes before we're going to add in the mushrooms, say. And we're going to put the lid on, turn the heat down a little bit. We don't want it burning at this stage. Turn it down a little bit, but leave a little bit of a gap just to let some of the air come out. So the curry's had a good 8 to 10 minutes now. Let's have a little look at it. Looks fantastic and smells great. We're going to throw in the mushrooms. Basically what you're looking for at this stage is that at least the outside of the chicken is cooked. We're going to throw in our mushrooms. We've got about 200 grams of mushrooms here. Throw them in, give it a good stir, and then we're going to leave the whole thing for probably 25 to 30 minutes to make sure the chicken's cooked. Cooking it nice and low. Well, you know, not too low. Medium low. Lid partially on, and if it does look like it's drying at all, don't be scared of adding a little bit of water. Don't add too much. Right, curry's been cooking for about 15 minutes. Let's have a look at it. As you can see, it's actually developed quite a juicy sauce. Now a lot of that will be because I've added mushrooms. Not adding mushrooms at this stage, you might need to add a bit of water, but keep checking it, keep giving it a stir. And I still think the curry's going to need a good 10 minutes to get that chicken done. Right, the curry's had a good... How long's it been? 35, 40 minutes? It's a good half an hour at least. And when you take the lid off, you notice it looks quite liquidy at the top, on top. But as soon as you give it a stir, you see the sauce. Anyway, right, let's check to see if the chicken's... Let's just see if the chicken's ready. So we'll find a piece with bone in it. I can see, to be honest, to my eye, the breast looks pretty good. We'll just check this. Couple more minutes? Okay, maybe needs a couple more minutes. Right, it's had another, well, probably about 7 or 8 minutes really. Let's check it. Yeah, that looks fine. There's no pink in there. We're ready to go. So what we're going to do now is take it off the heat. I'll turn the heat off. Add in our garam masala and a good handful of chopped coriander. So a good handful of chopped coriander. Give it a stir. Check the seasoning. I just had a little taste of mine and I think mine's fine. And then we're ready to serve. Well, curry's gone. It was really good. It was very hot. It's been a little while since I've made this recipe, and those chilies I had were hot. So maybe if you don't like it too hot, tone the chili down. But it's a good Asian style madras. I like to serve mine with this tomato onion salad and my own recipe for, well, it's not my recipe, a brilliant recipe for boiled basmati rice. I use brown rice just because it's healthier. But we will be putting some recipes up for those things. If anyone would like to see any more, please leave a comment, and thanks for watching.